Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums, and today I have a weekly check-in reading for the week of, I think today is Sunday, the May 24th through Saturday, May 30th. So we do have an upcoming full moon in Sagittarius next Sunday on the 31st. So happy Gemini season. I do apologize as I did not get a chance to record last weekend. I was very unwell with my own kind of stuff going on. Did not get to have a good time for my birthday, but that's okay because I was like, oh, I'll celebrate this weekend, and I've been so exhausted that I literally have just not left my home, and I've been in PJs the last day. So maybe today I'll get a little motivated to get myself out of the house and not just be a little hermit all weekend, because I am going to have a 3-day weekend. So and happy Memorial Day for those of us in the US. I know some people use it as like an excuse to just like barbecue and hang out and have picnics and stuff, but as a veteran, I do like to take into account all of our fallen members and just, you know, kind of take some time out to kind of connect to that energy and just be, you know, just recognize what was, you know, sacrificed, I guess, for this nation in some ways, even though the way things have been going here, I'm like, what is happening? So today I'll be using the Black Violet Tarot by Heidi Phelps, as I kind of feel like it goes great with Gemini season. So let's kind of see what we have in store for this week and what we need to kind of keep in mind. So what do we need to know this week as a collective? We have the 8 of Wands. All right, what do we need to do as a collective? We have the 3 of Wands reversed. What do we need to release as a collective? We have the 7 of Cups. And then finally, what do we need to contemplate as a collective? I kind of feel like this one actually. The 9 of Swords. Let's see what the reading for this week has in store for us and what we need to kind of keep in mind. So first off, with what we need to know, we have the 8 of Wands here. Now, when I think of the 8 of Wands, I think that it's a beautiful message of us kind of getting everything together, gathering our strength, and kind of moving forward in different ways. And so I feel like it is a great reminder of what it is that we've been working towards, what sort of energy, you know, are we kind of gathering within ourselves, and what is it that is requiring a lot of our focus at the current moment. So this week may feel like one where we're starting to see a little bit more progress, a little bit more of an intentional redirection as far as like what it is that we're trying to do, and essentially kind of focusing on what makes us, you know, have that sense of that second wind, that kind of rising up, you know, especially we have felt like things haven't really been moving in the direction of what we wanted, or if we've kind of struggled with what has been kind of happening around us. So when I think of Wands, I mean, honestly, it's like this beautiful kind of fiery, passionate, kind of driven energy that's kind of saying like, let's get out there, let's do things. I think that it is a fabulous reminder of what it is that maybe is wanting a little bit more of like that momentum and that movement. You know, maybe we've just been kind of static and not really investing our own energy into like what it is that we can do at the current moment. And I know, like, I don't know about you guys, but I have just felt so drained and so exhausted the last few months. And so I've just kind of felt like I don't really have a lot of extra energy for anything. But even like in the last few days, I've been kind of like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit more like a person. I want to, you know, get out there and do this and do that and get things done and kind of focus my attention and my energy where I can, so that I'm not feeling so just kind of like stuck and not able to really redirect sort of the energy that I have at the current moment. So I think that this week is one where maybe we need to kind of understand what it is that we're trying to direct this energy at, what we're trying to do, what direction are we kind of headed into, and taking into consideration like what is actually happening around us and how is that coming together with this sort of energy. So if you've been feeling like me, a little bit out of it, a little bit tired, this may be a week where we kind of feel a little bit more of like that push of like, okay, I can kind of get through things. I can kind of go out there and do extra stuff. Now with what we need to do, we have the Three of Wands reversed. Now, when I think of the Three of Wands, I feel like it's very much this reminder of how we can expand our horizons. Like, what strategies and plans do we need to kind of have in place before we kind of move into the next thing? It's interesting to have this as like what we need to do with this being reversed, because maybe this is not a time to be too focused on having everything like super developed, super planned out. I don't know about you guys, but I know like for me, I'm very much a person that's like, I have to just be very like structured and rigid in some ways. Like I kind of live and die by my calendar. I have my routines. I have like my daily schedules. I have everything just kind of like I'm constantly pre-planning and kind of going through, and I have a lot of routines and steps and rituals, so to speak, of how I kind of manage everything in my life. And I think that this week it's kind of saying like, hey, this is not a week to just be so focused on trying to have everything streamlined, looking a certain way. Maybe this is not the best time to feel like I have to like have it all figured out and have it all planned out. Maybe this is a week where this is kind of saying like, hey, just kind of go with the flow. Things are trying to shift and move. You may not feel prepared for it. I think if anything, it's kind of saying like we need to kind of look at the energy of the Two of Wands, which can be very much about kind of like taking that initial spark and creating something with it, making some choices, finding some harmony and some balance as far as what it is that we desire and what kind of lights our own personal fire in different ways. So maybe what we need to do this week is not going to be one where we're so like, I have to have everything mapped out. Maybe it's a little bit more chaos kind of energy in some ways, where we can just kind of go with the flow and not feel like things have to be so directed or look a particular way. So maybe this week is going to be one where we're just having to kind of do things as they come up, kind of deal with things as they come up. It's not one where it's like, you know, not saying that having strategies and plans in place won't be beneficial for you, but there may be some things kind of outside of your control that are going to happen, and you just kind of have to be like, okay, and that's what it is. I know for me, like the last few days have kind of been like that, where I'm like, oh, all right, now we're kind of going in this direction, and I thought I was going this way. So it's been a little bit challenging for me to just try to be like, all right, I'm just going to go with the flow and just see where things kind of take me. This isn't to say that planning and forethought and a strategy is going to be a negative, but it may not always yield the positive results that you're looking for this week. All right, so what we need to release, we have the Seven of Cups. Now, we do have Venus in Cancer and also joining in with Jupiter in Cancer. We will have Mars moving into Taurus. We have the Sun that is in Gemini. We have Pluto in Aquarius, which is currently stationed retrograde. We have a lot of different energies that can feel a little bit intense. I think with the Seven of Cups, this being what we need to release. When I think of the Seven of Cups, I think it's very much this card that is like our choices and our daydreams and illusions, and just really not seeing things for what they really are, because not everything that is being presented to you is going to be for your benefit, or not everything that's in the cups, you know, is going to be something that is going to be good for you. Some things are going to feel more complicated. Some things are going to be a little bit more of a challenge. Some things are going to require a little bit more work, whether that's internal, external, whether that is just like having to be a little bit more reflective. Now, with this being what we need to release, I think that maybe this is not a time to get kind of caught up in just trying to be delusional as far as like what is actually happening and going on in your life. Now, I'm not here to tell you that being delulu is not the solulu, because as someone with my own kind of stuff going on, I will say sometimes I do feel like I'm very delusional about things in some ways. But I think with the Seven of Cups is that maybe it's kind of saying like, hey, you've been too stuck on, you know, trying to pick the best thing and trying to figure out what is going to be the right next best move. And this is not going to be a time where everything is going to look the way that you thought it was going to initially. I know for many people in my age demographic, I'm a millennial. Many of us have kind of changed our life's trajectories in different ways. We've had to adjust different goals, ideas, plans, hopes, wishes, dreams to accommodate the things that kind of happen outside of our control. And I kind of feel like that's the energy for the Seven of Cups in this release position. I think that it's kind of saying like, hey, just because something looks a certain way doesn't mean that it's not going to be for your benefit, or just because it looks, or you thought it was going to be this way, doesn't mean that it's actually going to be something that is going to work out the way that you had intended and the way that you wish that it would. So I think with the Seven of Cups in the release position, we're kind of given this understanding that we are here to kind of just do what we can with what we know and where we're at. And we may not always be able to make the most informed or the best choice. I think if anything, it's just kind of saying like, this is not a time to kind of be so caught up in like, am I making the right choice? Am I doing the best thing? Sometimes, you know, we're just doing the best that we can with what we have and where we're at. And that just has to be what it is. And so it may just feel like we're having to kind of actively choose certain things that don't really right now look like they may be in our best interest. I know like for like me in my life, I've had to, you know, make some choices, and I reflect on those choices now, and I'm like, I'm kind of glad that, you know, I kind of made this like spur of the moment choice, even if it really wasn't aligned with what I kind of had for like the grand plan of my life, if that makes sense. So I think that's kind of the energy this week, is that we're just kind of being reminded that, you know, this is really about us just kind of focusing on what we can do with what we have and where we are at. Now, with what we need to contemplate, we do have the Nine of Swords. The thing with the Nine of Swords is that I feel like it is one of these cards that can kind of be a little bit anxiety inducing, especially if you're someone who is an overanalyzer and overthinker. Like maybe you have like been so much in your head about things. But I think the other thing that can kind of come with the energy here is that it's kind of requiring us to look at what do we need to release in order for us to kind of, you know, have the opportunity to really move forward and to kind of change how we view things and our perspective and, you know, how we process the information that's being given to us. I know so many of us are just kind of feeling tired. We're feeling overwhelmed. Anyone that, you know, is here in the US is probably feeling a lot of this energy of just kind of like, I'm kind of calling it like information fatigue, where I'm just like, there's just so much, there's like this deluge of stuff being constantly thrown our way, and it's just kind of like, I don't even freaking know anymore. And so I think with this Nine of Swords, it's kind of requiring us to kind of sit back and say, okay, what have you been carrying that really isn't yours? And, you know, it is Gemini season. So this is going to be a time where, you know, our mind is going to be the activation point in a lot of ways for what we need to do at this current time. And so I think with the Nine of Swords here, with what we need to contemplate is that maybe we need to have a better understanding of what we've taken on and what we're carrying that is really just not making sense and is not beneficial for us, because a lot of it is just essentially just creating more chaos, more discord, more of this kind of energy that isn't really, you know, allowing us to see things for what they are, or to, you know, garner a better sense of clarity. As someone who is a chronic overthinker, I have to kind of sit with myself sometimes and be like, stop, because me overthinking, me kind of like this, and this doesn't always mean that I get a clear direction as far as like what I need to do next. It doesn't give me, you know, a sense of, okay, I've thought of everything that could possibly go wrong, and so I kind of know what will happen here, or I have a deeper understanding of like what comes next. I have to kind of sit with myself and be like, you know, what is this thought process actually doing for myself? And how is this beneficial to the situation? It's not always easy. I'm someone that has, you know, always suffered with anxiety, and it can just be challenging to kind of call yourself out of it, especially when you're really deep in the throes of it. And that's the thing with our human emotions and how we process information a lot of the times, is that sometimes it's just not something that makes a lot of sense as we're kind of in the middle of it. And so I think that this week, with what we need to contemplate is, what are we carrying? Why are we carrying it? And what are we going to do with it? And what needs to be kind of put down so that we can kind of move on to the next thing, and kind of move away from the things that aren't really allowing us to see what is necessary and, you know, what will come next. So I think it'll be a very interesting week where we may feel like we're having to kind of make some decisions to kind of like move and go with the flow, even if we don't really feel prepared for it. And even if we don't always like the choices that are kind of being presented to us, and we have a lot of anxiety about what that will look like in the future, I think if anything, it's just kind of saying like, hey, sometimes you just have to kind of do things, even if we don't feel super prepared, even if we don't always have an understanding of what that will look like for us in the long term. So I want to say thank you so much for joining me. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.